Hello and welcome to another Python tutorial. So, I got an exciting tutorial for you guys today, especially for you people out there who, just like myself, you use VBA very heavily in your day-to-day work or something like that. I got something to share you today because I think it's going to be really useful. We're going to talk about how we can control different Office applications using Python. Now, this is kind of going to be our introduction to this series. Obviously, there is a lot that we can do with this, so this is probably going to span many videos just because, again, anything I was doing in VBA, I can now potentially do in Python. And so that's what makes this tutorial, at least for me, so exciting, because I think it's giving the VBA people a chance to kind of jump over to Python, but still be able to do everything else they were doing. I think that's the cool part. And so I was just really excited to share this one. When I discovered this, I was like, whoa, this is like game changer for me, because now I can do all my VBA stuff in Python and I'm not losing anything. If anything, I'm gaining. It's really cool. I'm going to start experimenting with some stuff because now that we're in the Python environment, we can access new types of objects. We get things like list, dictionaries. This is going to be a game changer for us when it comes to working with our Excel environment. And so we're going to be able to leverage these cool little objects and then see how we can make our Excel even much more dynamic than it was before. So very cool. Okay, so the first thing that we have to unfortunately tell people is this is only for Windows users. The library we're going to be using is called the Win32com library. This allows us to plug into our Windows API and control it from Python. So unfortunately, if you are a Mac user, from what I can tell, you cannot use this library. If I am wrong, please somebody put that down in the comments, because I've been trying to do research and it sounds like you can't, but I just want to throw that out there. So unfortunately, it is only for Windows users. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to import Win32com, and then we're going to call the client object itself. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to create an instance of Excel. Very cool. And we want to make sure it's visible, because by default, just because we create an instance doesn't mean it's visible. So we're going to create a new variable called Excel app, and we're going to set this equal to the Win32com. We're going to go into the client object, and then we're going to go into the dispatch method. And then we have to pass through the name of our application. Well, in this case, it's called Excel application. It is a string. And what this is going to do is it's going to create our new little instance of Excel, kind of like what we were doing in VBA with PowerPoint when we do new instance PowerPoint. And now all we got to do is just reference this little guy right here, and that's our Excel app. And then from this point forward, everything we're going to do is almost identical to what we're doing in VBA. But what we're going to start doing now is we're just going to change our syntax. That's really about it. That's how we got to think about it. Everything you're going to see right now, you've done it in VBA, so don't freak out if you're going like, oh my God, this is new. It's not, don't worry. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make sure our app is visible. And so how do we do that? Well, we're just going to call the visible property and set that equal to true. If it is a property, it will not have our little brackets like this. If it's a method, it has our little brackets like this. That's the first thing that we need to remember. Now that we've done this, let's create a new workbook. So we'll create a new workbook in the Excel app. And again, very simple to what we were doing in VBA. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable called Excel workbook. Unfortunately, in our Excel environment, we were kind of treated very nicely in the sense of we didn't have to do things fully qualified. So what did that mean? It meant that we could negate the active sheet, the active workbook. We could negate the application component of our VBA script. Here, we can't do that anymore. We have to be fully qualified. So we have to go into our application object, we have to go into our workbooks collection, and then we have to call the add method. So this will add a new workbook. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to close out everything here. I'm going to run this, and let's see what we get. Okay, so now we see we have a new workbook. It's called Book 1, just like we were expecting. Let's add a new sheet to this workbook. So we're going to create a new sheet in the workbook. And we're going to set, again, a new variable. This is probably going to be the hardest part for you VBA people. You got to start declaring your variables, and you got to start being fully qualified, unfortunately. We are no longer getting that luxury. So we're going to go into our Excel workbook object. We're going to go into our worksheets collection, and then again, we're going to call the add method. And when we do this, let's run it and see what we get. Great, so it opened up Excel, sheet 2, sheet 1, super quick. That was what I loved about this. Everything is super quick. I love it. I was trying to time it, and it seems like it's the same time, but I really doubt that because I was doing stuff between PowerPoint and Excel, and it was snappy fast. I loved it. Okay, so we've added a new sheet. Let's set a reference to a range of cells in our sheet. Very basic at this point. So set a reference to a range of cells. We're going to do multiple examples, don't worry. So we'll say Excel range 1. We're going to go into our Excel worksheet object. We're going to go into the range object, and then we're going to specify the range. And so this one I want A1 to A10. Very similar to how we were doing in VBA. We're just doing it in Python now. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to set the value of that range. So we're going to go into the value property and set all those values equal to 1. Bam, just like that, A1 to A10 is now all 1. Again, snappy fast. This is what I love about it. Let's create another range. But this one we'll use the cells method. So with the cells, we would do cells 1, 4, blah, blah, blah. We call it the index notation, right? Okay, so set a reference to a range of cells. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say cell 1. They still exist in a worksheet, so we're going to go into our worksheet object. We're going to go into cells 1, 4. So this is row 1, column 4. Cell 2 is equal to Excel worksheet cells. And then this one, row 7, column 4. Very cool. And then our Excel range 2 is equal to our Excel worksheet object. I'm going into my range object, and I'm going to pass through cell 1 and cell 2. And then with my Excel range 2 object, I'll set the value property equal to 100. And I'll do 200 for this one, just so it's a little bit interesting, right? Cool, look at that. So neat. I'm loving this library. All right, so we saw how we can set values to cells. Let's just do a couple more basic things, and that will do it for this video. Again, we just want to introduce the topic. Okay, let's count the cells in our range, right? So what we'll do is count the cells in our range. Okay, so we'll print out our Excel range 2 cells.count. So our cells object, and then we'll call the count property. It's the only thing that kind of pops up just like that. And then we can see right down here, 7. It has 7 cells. That looks like 7 to me. I'm happy. Okay. What if we wanted to loop through cells? We can do that. So if we want to loop through cells, I'll show 2 methods of doing it. The one that I'm going to show first, it would be kind of like a for each loop. So it would be like a for each loop in VBA. So we'll loop through the range of cells. So we'll say for cell item in Excel range 2, put our colon, and we'll print the cell item dot address, just like that. So we see D1, D2, D3, D4, so on and so on. Okay, so that's one way to loop through a range of cells. So this is like a for each loop. What I mean by that is it would be in VBA, it would be for each cell item in Excel range 2, and then it would be next. And then it would be something like this. So it would be, no, I don't want that. Cell item dot value, something like this. This was our VBA loop, so a for each loop. Now with Python, We have just a simple for loop. Now what we can also do is we can loop through it using kind of like that I equals 1, so a for I loop, or a thing like that. So a regular for loop and then a for each loop. So we'll say for I in range, so a range object, which is basically just a range of numbers. And then what we're going to do is we're going to count the number of cells in our particular range object. So how many items are in this cell? Well, the len function will return the length of our range of objects. So it will return the length kind of our object list. And then it will create a range that will go from the first element in our range of numbers to the last element in our range of numbers. And then with this one, I'm going to do something cool. I'll just do cell item, and then we'll do the value or something like that. So this would be like a for I loop. So just a regular for loop. You would say I equals 1 to I equals blah, 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 whatever it might be. And then from here, what we can do, 100, 100, 100, 100. Cool, right? So this is our introduction to this series. We've got so much more to do, but I'm so excited to share this because I think for you VBA people especially, this is your opportunity to kind of jump into Python with a head start. Now all of a sudden you can take what you've learned with VBA and you can just easily transfer this over. Really, you should be looking at this code right now and you're going like, I pretty much know all of this. Like if you've been watching the videos, there should have been nothing in here that was like, whoa, that's too foreign to me. This should look very familiar to you. The only thing we've done is we've changed our environment, and we're going to have to change our syntax a little bit, and we're going to have to get, used to certain things. For example, we're going to have to get used to being fully qualified. We can't do this anymore where we're just saying, hey, active worksheet, dot range, whatever. We can't do that anymore. In Python, we've got to be fully qualified. We have to say what application we're talking about. We have to talk about which workbook and things along that nature. Now, we can obviously make our lives a little bit easier by, referencing each object along our code. So this one, I'm going into my Excel workbook. Well, then I just got to call my Excel workbook, and then my worksheets collection, then my add. And then I can just call my worksheet from that point, then my range. And I can just call my range and set the values. So, we'll see how we can do this, but that's it. That's all we've changed is, we're just going to have to learn to be fully qualified with our actual variables and things like that. But we're going to see with Python, we can now do 10 times more. So yeah, that does it for today's video. If you got any questions about this library or kind of things that we could maybe do with it, I'll try to answer them. I'll be honest though, there's not a lot of documentation out there. I don't think people were very aware that you could actually control pretty much the entire Excel VBA object model from within Python. I think this is kind of at least for me when I was looking at it, I was like, whoa, like we can do this? So I think there's a lot that we can obviously do with it. I've tried it, taking information from Excel to PowerPoint, that worked. So again, we'll just start kind of doing with the videos. If you got an idea of a video that maybe you want to do, please put it down in the comments. If you've got any questions related to the library, put those down in the comments. Anything we covered today, put those down in the comments. Also, make sure to like the video if you could. We appreciate the support. We definitely want people to find this video. I think, again, anyone who's done VBA, they're going to love this video. It's going to make their lives 10 times easier. And then also, if you could make sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you get updates as we keep releasing these videos on Python and seeing how we can work with these different Office applications together. I think it's going to be really cool. So thanks again for watching, guys. We will see you in the next video.